Hello, and welcome once again to the Sihtetorwi dimension. It is I, your faithful leader and companion through these harrowed halls. Today we have a brand new story for you, and I hope that you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed finding and creating it with my brain. As the rain streaked down the broken window, Devin took a look outside. This gave him a perfect view of the ominous glow that had been chasing him. It was then that he decided to review the series of events that led him to this situation, alone in an abandoned building, waiting for fate to take its course. It started like any other day. The sun rose, the birds sang, and several hours later, Devin decided to roll out of bed. It had been a few months since he had lost his job, and in that time Devin found that waking well after noon was much more comfortable than getting up at the crack of dawn, as he was previously forced to for work. Wiping the sleep from his eyes, Devin decided to check his messages. This proved to be a difficult task, as his phone had received a huge crack when Devin was forcefully removed from a bar 2 weekends ago. After fumbling around with his phone for a few minutes, Devin managed to get his messages open. As he was perusing the usual messages, threats from ex-girlfriends, his mother telling him about a job opportunity, and his friend telling him about their business trip, one caught his attention. It was from a number he didn't recognize, and the preview text just said, "Read immediately," in all caps. Intrigued, Devin opened the message. "Read immediately. You don't know me, but I know you, Devin, and you are in danger. Someone or something is going to be at your house today. I don't know when, but if I had to guess, probably around 2 p.m. It's important that—" Devin glanced at his clock on his cracked phone. It looked like it said 1:52, so he still had a little time. He continued reading. "You leave as soon as possible. There is a location in the woods outside of your town that should work as a hiding place. Just don't think about it, or it will find you, and under no circumstances should you—" Devin's reading was stopped abruptly when a loud banging sound was made on the wall across the room. He waited as he checked his phone. 2:07. Devin slapped himself in the face audibly. The time must have been 1:57 when he checked. Of course this would happen. He always had bad luck like this. It had just never been this detrimental or important. This one was louder and more to the right of the room, closer to where Devin was sitting. Whatever or whoever it was must have heard the facepalm. Devin made a split-second decision. He felt nearby and threw the first thing that he felt was heavy enough at the far wall. As it hit the wall with a thud and a hiss, Devin wondered if his cat would forgive him later. He didn't have much pondering time, as Devin quickly ran out of his bedroom and rushed towards and then out of the front door to his apartment. While running away from his apartment, Devin decided to look back and catch a glance at whatever it was that was outside of his room. Aside from the rather large scratch in his car, there wasn't anything abnormal he could make out around his apartment, just an abnormally bright light coming from around the corner of the building. That's not out of the realm of possibility. One of his neighbors might have left their brights on overnight. But as Devin turned back to focus on where he was going, he noticed the light shift around the building towards him. It was what was outside the wall. That was it! So he kept running, hoping it wouldn't keep up. Every now and then he would stop around a corner or behind some dense foliage to hide and catch his breath. But every time he did that, there was a faint humming noise that kept getting closer. Devin would peek out, and sure enough, he would see the faint light catching up just out of view. By the time he had made it out of town, it was overcast and getting darker. Devin knew where his mysterious savior was sending him. In fact, a lot of people knew the place. An abandoned school from when the town was only known for its logging and a giant statue of a beaver. As he approached the building, Devin fell flat on his face. Rolling over, he noticed he had tripped over an old textbook sticking out of the ground. It was actually impressive he hadn't tripped up to this point, being as clumsy as he was. Nevertheless, the position that Devin was in allowed him a perfect view of the forest from which he had come, and peeking through the trees was the faint approaching light. It was starting to rain, so he quickly got up and entered the building and headed upstairs, remembering that the high ground was more advantageous. As he climbed and looked out the windows of the woods, Devin tried to remember where he'd learned that. Maybe from a movie. As the rain streaked down the broken window, Devin took a look outside. This gave him a perfect view of the ominous glow that had been chasing him. It was then that he remembered the words from the message. Just don't think about it or it will find you. That was why it was outside. Devin had been thinking about it the whole time. It was tracking him through his thoughts. He tried to stop thinking about it and focus on other things, like where he had heard about the high ground thing. The light dimmed outside as he focused on remembering. Then he remembered and felt stupid for forgetting. It was from A loud shrieking noise cut his train of thought. It was the light, Devin guessed. He leaned out the window and saw the light was fading. It receded to a single point and then flashed. Then, there on the forest floor was a solid black sphere, and his ex-girlfriend? She waved him to come down, so Devin went downstairs and out to meet her. Devin questioned why she was there. "I'm sorry, Devin," she started. "I accidentally released this thing from the lab I work at, and it latched onto my feelings towards you." Devin opened his mouth, but was cut off. "It's a Feldtrar. My supervisor told me after I let it out. It feeds on feelings and then acts on them. I'm happy you actually listened to my advice this time, or it might have killed you and evolved." Devin got flustered and was about to argue about the implications that he never listened to her and yell about possibly dying to something that his ex-girlfriend had inadvertently sent after him, but was again cut off. "I'd love to argue with you right here, but could you pick that up," pointing at the orb, "and follow me back to the lab? My supervisor would probably want to talk to you." Devin shook with mild anger, but calmed down, picked up the orb, which was still warm, and said, "Sure." "Well, thank you once again for joining me in the Sihtetorwi dimension. It's always a pleasure, and I look forward to your continued return as I find more mysterious stories to tell and thrill you